So, welcome to the Kickass Midlife Method podcast, and I'm joined by some women from the community. And tonight we're talking about the truth about supplements for women over 45. Because if you are in perimenopause, or postmenopause, there is no doubt that you have been hit on all sides on Instagram, social media, newspapers, magazines about supplements that will claim to do this, that, and the other. So, we're going to dig down into actually what they do. Are any of them worth spending on your money on, or is it all menno washing basically? So obviously the global, I mean, the fact that the global market for menopause products is worth 16.93 billion will tell you quite a lot about, the fact that it's obviously a valuable market and hence why there are so many supplements suddenly on the market aimed at us. Now, they claim to, with your hormone shift, your nutrition needs a shift, your gut absorption changes, muscle preservation and recovery becomes critical. And so all of these kind of vulnerabilities around this type of age chapter in our lives make supplements a kind of worthwhile, valuable market. Um, First of all, though, I'd like to say that you can't out supplement a crappy diet. So, first and foremost, it should always be about your lifestyle and your nutrition. They will do more than any supplement ever can or will do. And so, if you take a supplement, but actually you're drinking loads, that's not going to make any difference. Drinking alcohol. If you take, for instance, creatine, which is meant to be good for muscle maintenance, but you're not exercising, doing resistance training, that won't make any difference. So, first and foremost, that's your foundation. And then it's about layering supplements, potentially, if any of them are any good, which is what we're going to dig into now. So, first of all, creatine. So this is an interesting one. So the research does actually support the fact that we will experience benefits in skeletal muscle size and function when consuming doses of creatine. Um, uh, and there's also evidence that it has positive effects on mood and cognition. So interestingly, one of my very first articles I ever wrote for a magazine was 25 years ago, and when the French tennis player, whose name escapes me now, was taking creatine, and they had me taking creatine and doing resistance training when I was about 26. I can't really remember whether I had much difference back then. But the research out does show that actually this could be worthwhile. But again, as I say, it's not really going to have that much difference if you don't do resistance training. And resistance training to a point that you can that you're lifting heavy enough and progressive overload, and then it will have an effect. So obviously helps with strength. What it does is enable you to push harder, so gives you that ability to actually lift heavier. And then on the back side of it, your recovery is faster. So therefore, for those kind of short bursts of energy, which is required a little bit like sprinters really use it, tennis players, the same thing, because when you're lifting something heavy, it's a kind of short, fast explosion of effort, a bit like a sprint. And that's when creatine can be really useful. There are loads of different types of creatine, and the most researched one is creatine monohydrate. So that's the one to go for. I don't know whether any you have noticed that nowadays there are people selling gummies. You can have a creatine gummy that you can take. The evidence around seems to be that there's not sufficient creatine in gummies for a lot of those things. So you want the powdered version, and you want to take 3 to 5 grams of creatine daily and aim for the creatine monohydrate. So this is one that has got a lot of research behind it. It's been used, as I say, in my lifetime for the last 25 years, and it's been used in bodybuilding circuits, athletes, all of that kind of thing. So if you're going to take one, I would say that creatine is one that's worth taking. Then protein powder. Obviously, I talk about protein powder a lot. We do need protein in order to help maintain our muscle, build muscle if we are training. And if you can get it through your food, then fine. But as we've had this discussion loads, if you've been in the Kickass Midlife Method community for a while, we've discussed protein and in our nutrition a lot. And it's difficult to get in the amounts that we need unless you're kind of thinking about food all the time or you're working from home all the time and you can have lots. For instance, to give you an example, I've just gone into a strength phase after my running, and I'm eating so much protein, like 3 eggs plus an egg white, plus tuna, plus salmon. It's a lot. So actually, if you have a protein shake, it's a much easier and more palatable, even for those who don't like the taste, way of getting sufficient protein in for what you need as a busy woman, without having to constantly be thinking, God, tuna, salmon, eggs all the time. Now, the evidence again is that whey is the best for fast absorption. There is evidence, obviously, that post-training, 20 to 40-minute window after training is really ideal. And obviously plant-based blends if dairy doesn't suit you. Now, the reason I recommend the Form protein, which is the vegan one, is because in perimenopause, postmenopause, some women can develop an intolerance to dairy. So that's why I recommend a vegan protein source. Vitamin D is another one. It has been associated deficiency with a greater incidence of hip fracture in postmenopausal women. A study found that almost 50% of women with osteoporosis who were hospitalized due to hip fractures, 50% had signs of vitamin D deficiency. So that's kind of a sobering statistic, I think, and estimated that 90% of adults between 51 and 70 don't get enough vitamin D from their diet. So I think vitamin D is found in foods like fatty fish, which we think of as salmon, mackerel, tuna, those kind of fishes, fish liver oils, beef liver, egg yolks, and cheese, and also exposure to sunlight. So that's why often when we talk about living in Europe, Northern Europe, we talk about potentially needing vitamin D because of our lower levels of sunlight. Not at the moment, however. We've had a good summer. So low levels can be linked to fatigue, bone loss, low mood, poor immunity. So that's another one. But again, it might be worth looking and getting specialist advice about whether you are actually deficient in vitamin D before you just start taking it. Although it's not going to harm you in any way, so there might not be. It might be worth taking. I would also, I'm going to I'll get that through to that at the end. And then magnesium. So this has been going on in the Kick-Ass community actually over the last couple of weeks. Magnesium you see a lot around about as well. So important for maintaining muscle, nervous system function, immune system, regulating glucose and insulin metabolism. Oh, I'm doing that again. Metabolism. Um, has again been used in the treatment of postmenopausal symptoms. So good for anti-inflammatory, supports sleep, stress, muscle recovery, blood sugar, and hot flushes. So magnesium-rich foods. So again, before you just suddenly jump into a supplement, if you're getting it through dietary sources, then that should be enough. You're looking at nuts, almonds, bananas, black beans, brown rice, cashews, seeds and whole grains. So if your diet is rich in that, then you should be fine. However, as menopausal women, then sometimes that can be affected. So there are again about 6 different types of magnesium. So you need to take the right one for the right symptom. So I've not included 3 of them. So these are the 3 main ones: the glycinate, which is sleep and anxiety, magnesium malate, if that's how you say it, for energy and muscle pain. So if you're someone that's often suffers from, if you have chronic pain sometimes and inflammation, then that one can be quite good for that. And then magnesium citrate if you suffer from constipation, so if you have gut problems, which can be an issue in midlife, particularly if you're not having enough fiber. So that might be something that's worth taking. And you should avoid oxide. So if you see oxide, it's really hard to absorb. So don't even bother with that one. And then collagen. This is a big one because obviously, sorry, that type's a bit small. Collagen, there's two types, and this is where it gets confusing. Most people just immediately assume that collagen, you just take a collagen and it's going to be good for your skin. Um, or the other thing, it's going to be good for your joints. Bovine collagen is good for your joints and your muscles. That's what it's used for. Marine collagen is used for your skin, nails, and hair. Now, you've probably got friends who anecdotally have said, wow, I've started taking collagen, my hair keeps growing and my nails keep growing. Who knows? So far, the research is not out there to support either in any way at the moment, mainly because a lot of the studies that have been done have been funded by collagen companies or have been had researchers or people doing the studies that have got a connection to collagen companies. So the jury's out, really. My research has shown that the bovine collagen has had some success with joints and for younger athletes, male athletes, in terms of, their recovery, their joint, their kind of performance. But again, typically midlife women come last in terms of medical research, so we're not sure. So the jury's out on that. So maybe anecdotally you think, oh, maybe I'll try it just because my friends have said it's had an effect. But as with anything, you've got to take it consistently to have an effect. And I don't know about you, I go in and out of taking stuff, and half the time I forget, and then I'm. So if you're going to take it, make sure you're taking it consistently. You're never going to know about the collagen, the bovine collagen, whether it's like kind of good necessarily for your joints until years later. Really, it's a kind of a trust thing. And the marine collagen, I would say, if you want to do it, then make sure you get a good quality. Opt for a powder or a liquid with at least 5 to 10 grams of collagen per dose. Avoid gummies, sweets, or vegan collagen, which doesn't have it in it. So there's so much about collagen at the moment. And I did watch a really good, or read a really good one about a study that she'd done and tested loads of collagen, and most of them didn't have sufficient collagen in to make any difference at all. And it was particularly the gummies have got other additives, not enough collagen. So just be really aware that you're looking at the ingredients, so you're not just spending money on stuff that is a bit of a rip-off, really. And then omega-3s. Now, omega-3s, I see less of this supplementation being touted actually in the media and on social media than it used to be. It used to be a really massive one. Obviously, we should be getting it through our diet, really. I'm very big on talking about your healthy fats as part of one of your macros. So you should be getting it through your fishes, your seeds, your nuts. You've got linseed in this picture, actually, which I don't mention enough. Linseed is a really good source, which you can add to your cereal, and it's really good for fiber as well, actually. So that might be worth adding to muesli or your porridge, for instance. Um, Anti-inflammatory, and there is lots of research around omega-3. So omega-3 is one of those ones that is definitely got a lot of research behind. Supports brain and heart health. It's meant to support mood as well, especially in perimenopause. 1 to 2 grams daily. So again, if you're going to take it, you want to look for quality fish oil or algae based for vegans. But I think most of you should, looking at your nutrition that I look at, are getting it through your nutrition. So you shouldn't really need that. And then what's not worth it? The fat burners, thermogenics, detox DTs, liver cleanses, hormone balancing supplements, and multivitamins. Multivitamins are often so low dose that they're just not worth it. And then the other thing, So your foundations, as I say, to focus on your foundations, your protein, your fiber, your hydration, your sleep and your training, and then after that, you nail those two first. If you're like, yes, I've nailed them, and I'm sure that I'm doing everything I can in those two sectors, then it may be worth supplementing and probably like creatine and protein powder first, I would say. And then the other thing, because this was a big topic in I saw in the community the other day when everyone was talking about Holland and Barrett, be really careful about where you get your vitamins and your supplements from. Holland and Barrett, typically their own brand stuff is not very good. It's so you want to look for third party tested um, products. Make sure you're looking at the ingredients again, that they haven't got bulkers in, gelling agents, preservatives, all of those things, fillers, sorry. Um, uh, and then, so they will be more expensive. There's a reason that good supplements are more expensive. Holland and Barrett is not typically a great source of supplements in terms of the quality. In my head, I've got names of supplement companies which is floating around, but I can't remember. So I'll put it in the group afterwards that I would recommend. And that's it. So it's a very quick, and there are a million and one other supplements I'm sure that are being touted at the moment on social media. But I really wanted to cover those kind of main ones that I think seem to be all over.